Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with RotoCurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings MLB Benny's Bats video for Thursday, April 14th. It's only a small 5-game night slate that we're going to be talking about here, and it's kind of a tough slate. There's not a lot of guys that really stand out to us, but we are going to go through each matchup like we always do, try to figure out what the weakness of each pitcher is, and then figure out which bats on the other side profile to do the best against them. So let's get started right at the top with the Yankees going up against the Blue Jays. Nathan Eovaldi is going to be pitching for the Yankees, and left-handed bats is usually the way we want to attack Eovaldi. But if you look at that Toronto lineup, they really don't have any left-handed bats except for some of the guys that they throw in like the 6 to the 9 hole, towards the bottom of the order. All the guys up at the top of the order are basically big right-handed bats. So let's take a look at the splits against right-handers, which I think are going to be more relevant today. Let's see. Right-handed bats last year hit 258 against them, had a whip of 1.28, and he only gave up 6 home runs in 85 innings worth of work. That's like 1 home run every 15 or 16 innings, basically. And, with this Toronto team being a big power home run hitting kind of team, that's pretty good for Eovaldi and pretty bad for the Blue Jays. There are some guys who stand out just based on the numbers. You got Joey Bautista, who's 402, 308, even in righty-on-righty matchups. Josh Donaldson, 390 WOBA, 257 ISO, righty on righty, and Edwin Encarnacion, who's off to a little bit of a slow start at 388, 276. So there are some guys who numbers-wise stand out here, but like I said, Eovaldi does not give up a lot of home runs to right-handed bats, and he is somebody who, you would rather attack with lefties if you had the opportunity to. So this team really doesn't profile all that well against them. He does throw a lot of fastballs, though, so if somebody turns around on one, I can definitely see somebody putting one in the stands. But I don't think this is a game where we're going to see 4 or 5 home runs out of this Blue Jays team like they tend to do sometimes in Toronto when they have a pretty good matchup. On the other side of the game, we got Marcus Stroman going up against the Yankees. The last 3 years, he's been kind of a reverse splits guy, so righty-on-righty hitters usually hit better against him. And the Yankees really don't have any of those. I mean, A-Rod is probably the best one, and he's not even great in righty-on-righty situations. We actually like him much better against the lefties. A couple guys that stand out a little bit here. Stroman's got good numbers against the Yankees, so there's not much that I really want to target. But you do have Brett Gardner, who's 3 of 13 lifetime against him with 2 home runs. So, that's a pretty interesting number to look at. You also have Mark Teixeira, who in lefty-righty matchups last year had a 404 WOBA and a 347 ISO score. So he's definitely somebody that has power from the left side against right-handed pitching. Not the greatest matchup for him versus Stroman, but I do think it's something that we can look at. Next game we can take a look at, Baltimore at Texas. Cole Hamels is pitching for Texas, and he's been great to start the season. The only guy that really profiles to do well against a guy like Cole Hamels, and the only guy who's actually done well against him in the past a little bit, is Mark Trumbo. Trumbo's got a 370 WOBA, 251 ISO score against left-handed pitching. He's basically the only bat that I'm really scared of here. The only other guy that kind of stands out, there is a good BVP matchup here for those who are big fans of BVP. J.J. Hardy is 4 of 12 lifetime against Hamels with a home run. So he's somebody else that I think you can take a look at for a cheap shortstop option. On the other side of this game, we got Chris Tillman pitching. And Tillman's a right-handed pitcher, but he's a guy that has some reverse splits as well. Righty on righties, they did better against him last year. 271 batting average, 1.33 whip, and 17 home runs in 87 innings worth of work. So basically a home run every 5 innings. The guy who stands out the most to me is actually Adrian Beltre. He does well in righty-on-righty situations as well. So he's the guy who profiles best. Righty-on-righty, a little bit of power going up against Tillman. So I think Beltre is somebody who's definitely in play. You can look at guys like Delino DeShields Jr. and Nomar Mazara at the top of the order. Righty in DeShields, lefty in Mazara. I think these guys can get on base, have a pretty high whip. So if these guys can get on in front of some of the power hitters, we could see them with a couple singles, a couple runs scored, maybe get themselves to, 8 to 12 points and be, solid, if not spectacular plays. Prince Fielder's the guy who stands out the most on the numbers. Left-handed bat, hits well against right-handed pitching, 382 WOBA last year. Did not have a lot of power last year, didn't hit a lot of home runs. 154 was his ISO score, which is, the ISO score you usually expect to see out of a shortstop or a light-hitting second baseman, not something you expect to see out of a power-hitting first baseman. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for home runs, he's probably not the guy that's going to jack it out there for you, but he is somebody who should have a, pretty good game, maybe rack up a couple hits, get a couple RBIs. I also like Mitch Moreland a little, especially with Sinsu Chu out. He's been hitting right behind Fielder, either in the 4 or the 5 hole in that order, along with Adrian Beltre. They actually usually have Beltre between them to split them up. So Fielder hits 3rd, Beltre hits 4th, Moreland hits 5. He had a 361 ISO with the 222, a 361 WOBA with the 222 ISO last year. So he's another guy that I think we can take a look at if you're looking to, take some bats to go up against Tillman here. Next game we can talk about, Cincinnati at the Chicago Cubs. Raciel Iglesias is pitching for Cincinnati, and he's been pretty good. Left-handed bats have been the way to attack him, though. 286 batting average last year with a 1.54 whip. Now, we got a lot of lefties on this Cubs team, and this lineup has been smashing the ball, so I don't think it's a very easy matchup for Iglesias at all. You got guys like Rizzo, 387 WOBA, 257 ISO. He took him yard last year, limited at bats against him, so I don't really want to quote too much BVP because it's not a very sample size, but Rizzo did have a home run against Iglesias last season. Chris Bryant, 379, 216 over the course of the last this season and last season combined. So he's another guy I think we can take a look at. Hits very well in righty-on-righty situations, so he might be in play as well. Although Iglesias is tough on right-handed bats, so I'm not in love with him, but I do think we need to mention him. Jason Hayward and Ben Zobrist, the 2 other guys, left-handed bats that they brought in. They basically brought in some left-handed bats because they didn't have a ton of them last year. So I think that these 2 guys are definitely 2 guys that you can look at as well. You're getting all the guys up at the top of the order, Zobrist, Hayward, Rizzo, Bryant. These guys all hitting the top 5 of the order most of the time, along with Dexter Fowler, who I don't really love in this matchup. But I do think you can look at the lefties like, like Hayward, like Zobrist, like Rizzo. I think those are the guys who you really want to target here. On the other side of this game, we got Jason Hamill. And right-handed bats have been better against him, so he's more of a reverse splits kind of pitcher. They hit about 250, 260 over the course of the last 3 years. And last year, he did give up 16 home runs in 95 innings pitched to right-handed bats. So that would probably be the way I'd look to attack him. He's been tougher on lefties. So the guys who you would normally think of, like Joey Votto or Jay Bruce, not really guys who have good numbers against them. The one guy who does have some pretty good numbers against them is Eugenio Suarez. In 8 at-bats last season, Suarez was 4 for 8 against Hamill. So he's hitting 500 against Hamill in his limited time out there. So he's definitely somebody that I would take a look at. Next game we can talk about, we got Kansas City. Kennedy's on the mound for Kansas City. And Ian Kennedy is basically equal to both sides of the plate. He's got about a 255 and a 258 batting average to lefties and righties, 128 whip and 131 whip. So he's basically a guy that's around the 250, 260 batting average range and, has a whip just shy of 130 overall, equal to both hands. He also gave up a lot of home runs last year, 31 of them. I think he gave up 18 to lefties, 13 to righties. So, again, pretty equal from both sides of the plate. The problem that Kennedy is a guy who gives up a lot of home runs, and this Astro team is a team that, yes, they strike out a lot, but they also mash a lot of home runs. So there's a lot of guys that you can look at. This would be a game that I think you might be able to stack up. A guy like Tyler White in limited at-bats has just been absolutely awesome against right-handed pitching. 519 WOBA, 346 ISO, definitely somebody in play. Carlos Correa, again, we mention him every day over the course of this season and all of last season. 366 WOBA, 223 ISO score, righty-on-righty situation. So not his best split, but still, those are some pretty good numbers, especially for a shortstop. You can look at a guy like Preston Tucker, who's got some power, 255 ISO. Kobe Rasmus, who's been hitting right-handed pitching very well, hitting in that cleanup spot. He's somebody else I like. 344 WOBA, which is a little bit low, but the 256 ISO, you can tell this guy has power. I mean, even guys like Springer, Valbuena, all these guys have high ISO scores against right-handed pitching. So any of them could take Kennedy yard, and I do think Kennedy's going to give up a couple home runs in this game because, again, he's a homer-prone kind of pitcher going up in a ballpark like Houston, which is homer-prone anyway, and he's pitching against a team that does tend to, either strike out or hit home runs. They swing for the fences a lot with these Astros. So I can't really tell you exactly which guys are going to be the ones that mash the homers, but I do think you get a couple home runs and a couple big scores out of a couple of the bats on the Astros today. Looking at the other side of this game, you got, for Houston, you got Doug Fister going up on the mound. Left-handed bats is usually the way to attack him, but right-handed bats actually had, a pretty good average and hit him pretty hard last year as well. The 2 guys that really stand out to me in this lineup, though, Eric Hosmer, 375 WOBA, 179 ISO against right-handed pitching. He's 8 for 23 lifetime against Fister with a home run. So good BVP, good matchups, good numbers. So everything kind of bears out the way we think it would. He doesn't have a he is over spot here today. This is Moustakas, 348 WOBA, 176 ISO, so a little bit less than what Hosmer has. But he is also 9 of 25 lifetime against Doug Fister with the home run. So again, another guy who profiles well and also has a little bit of BVP history to back it up. So I like Moose, I like Hosmer. They're probably the two best bats that I would want to target here on the Royals. The last game we have on the slate, remember, we're only doing a 5-game night slate here that starts at 7 o'clock Eastern today. The last game is Arizona Diamondbacks going up against the LA Dodgers. We got Robbie Ray on the mound for Arizona. Right-handed bats have been the way to attack him. 252 average last year, 138 whip. Did have a low home run rate, though, so I don't expect a lot of bombs to be hit. Dodger Stadium, not a place that usually yields a ton of home runs anyway, so I think that kind of ticks down most of these guys on the Dodgers for me. Left-handed bats have been okay against them, but not really great, so I think I'd more look to target some of the righties. So a couple guys that kind of stand out to me. Yasiel Puig is probably my favorite play today. 393 WOBA, 253 ISO last year against left-handed pitching, and he's 2 for 5 lifetime against Robbie Ray. So again, such a small sample size, we don't want to put too much emphasis on it, but it is nice to know that when a guy profiles well against somebody and then he has a little bit of BVP to back it up, it kind of gives you more faith that you can roll him out there. So I definitely like Puig, probably my favorite play on the Dodgers today. Hopefully they move him back up to the 3rd in the batting order like Dave Roberts did last week. I think that would be a really good spot for him, and that's when I would really like to see him and roll him out there. Couple of the other guys that I think you can use, Corey Seager's all right in matchups, lefty on lefty, same-sided matchups. He's obviously better against right-handed pitching, but he has some decent numbers so far in his young career against lefties as well. You got Trace Thompson and Yasmani Grandal, who are two other guys that can bat from the right side of the plate. With all the injuries to the outfield, Trace Thompson and Jock Peterson have basically been in a platoon. When they face a righty, you usually see Peterson. When you face a lefty, you usually see Thompson. The problem is he's probably going to be hitting 7th or 8th in that order. So, he's somebody that you can use as a flyer for tournaments, but definitely not somebody I'd want in cash. Very likely to only get 3, maybe 4 at-bats at the absolute most. Guys like Gonzalez and Turner and Utley, these are not really great options for me today, not guys that I'm really looking at. Like I said, Robbie Ray, right-handed bats is the way you want to go up against them. I know Turner is a right-handed bat, but he actually has reverse splits where he hits better against, right-handed pitching than he does against left-handed pitching. So maybe you can look at him, but I think what they usually do and the way I like to see it, they put Puig in the 3-hole and then drop Turner to Puig's usual 5-hole when they go up against a left-handed pitcher, because Puig is good against the lefties and Turner is average. I'm not going to say he's bad, but he's definitely not good. It's not one of his better situations, so I don't really think we need to target him there. Now, on the other side for the Dodgers, it's a little tough for me. We got Ross Stripling going up there. We have very limited innings to look at with this guy. Now, remember, he was great last time out. Took a no-hitter into the 7th before they pulled him early and ultimately wound up losing the game. But I think you want to go with, basically, I'm not really sure with the limited innings that he has exactly which way we want to attack him. So what I want to do is I'm going to look at the Arizona bats that do well against right-handed pitching like he is, and those are probably the guys that I think we can roll out there. So the guy who pops off the page is obviously Paul Goldschmidt, 408 WOBA, 253 ISO, even in righty-on-righty matchups. One of the best hitters in the league, definitely a viable option, somebody you can roll out there any day of the week. He is expensive. Dodger Stadium, not a great hitter's park. You like him a lot better when he's at home in Arizona, but again, he's such a good hitter that I don't think you can ignore him. David Peralta, probably the guy who profiles best, left-handed bat going up against righties, hitting probably in the 4-hole again today, which is where he had been recently. 396 WOBA, 228 ISO score. Definitely think I'm going to have some shares of Peralta in the outfield today. And then the other guy you can look at as a cheaper option, Socrates Brito, the young guy that they just brought up. Limited at bats, obviously, but he's got a 362 WOBA with a 213 ISO against right-handed pitching. So I think he's somebody that's in there as well. The only other guy I'm really looking at on this Arizona team is Jake Lamb. Lamb is somebody that, our fellow contributor here at RotoCurve, Mike Rathburn, was telling me last year that he absolutely loved this guy. He had a hot start to the season last year. Then he got injured, was out for most of the season. Completely forgot about him until the beginning of this year. And then, he started off with a couple good hits. So I think Jake Lamb is the other guy that you can look at. And unfortunately, there are a lot of games out there tonight, so make sure you come over to rotocurve.com. There'll be people in chat talking about the games. I know Josh will have his pitching stuff up there. We'll have some other stuff up there by some of our other contributors, some tournament plays, some things for you guys to look at. So it's free to sign up. Make sure to get over here. Remember, rotocurve.com. Just tell them Benny sent you. They'll take care of you over there. So thank you guys for joining us here at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.